benefits our healthcare system, environmental sustainability, or foreign policy. The policies of our country do not reflect the will of the people. In fact, the policies are a reflection of the wishes of the elites. It's been shown. Look it up. The reason for this is clear. They're the donors. But the thing is, people are catching on, and they're stepping up in a variety of ways to demand an end to this system of legalized bribery. My next guest is the Legislative Director for Wolf-PAC Minnesota, Gabe Vattendahl Vidal, here to tell us about their work to advance the free and fair elections resolution in Minnesota. Welcome to the call, Gabe.
Hi, Jodi. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to have you on here. So full disclosure, I think if you've been watching me for a little while, you probably know that I am involved in Wolf-PAC. I am a national coordinator, and Minnesota is one of the teams that I work with. So I am very proud of their progress, and I get to ride on their coattails a little bit and be excited about their progress. So I wanted to tell you so that y'all can be as excited as I am. So Gabe, tell us about this resolution, HF 429. What does it entail? What is the free and fair elections resolution about?
Yeah, so as you may know, Wolf-PAC's main goal is to try to remove the influence of special interest and big money interests in politics. As you may know, like 75% of the time our legislators spend is calling special interest trying to raise money. And so obviously that results in a fair bit amount of corruption, and the outcomes that come out of our politics don't necessarily match the will of the people. And so our resolution is essentially trying to address that issue of preserving our free and fair elections here in the United States by adding a 28th Amendment to the Constitution, protecting our campaign finance laws. As far as the specifics of the resolution, all it's really doing is calling for a Article 5 convention in which the states would send delegates to discuss crafting and then proposing new amendment to the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about, I know this is in Article 5 of the Constitution. I love that you specified it's an Article 5 convention. It's not a constitutional convention. A lot of people make that mistake. So just to clarify that for the audience as well, a lot of people talk about it as a constitutional convention. That's not what it is. That's what happens when you actually rewrite the Constitution. That's not what's happening here. So tell us a little bit about the path, because I think most people are familiar with one route to getting a constitutional amendment, but this is one that's kind of less taken. This is the road less traveled. So tell us a little bit about like what are the processes and how does this fit in?
Yeah, so usually how an amendment is proposed to be added to the Constitution, it can either go through the United States Congress or it can go through the states. In either case, it requires a 2/3 to sign on to crafting a new amendment to the Constitution, whether that's 2/3 of Congress proposing a resolution or that's 2/3 of the states. And so the path Wolf-PAC is taking is going through the states because obviously it's hard to get Congress to do anything, let alone, regulate their own campaign contributions, because let's be honest, a lot of them actually personally benefit from receiving a lot of these donations. So they don't see any urgency in fixing it. In fact, many of them like the current system. And so Wolf-PAC decided to go through the state route. And as the Constitution lays that out, essentially what you have to do is you need to get 2/3 of the states to pass a resolution asking for an Article 5 convention to craft an amendment, and then it'll be proposed. And so the full path that it takes is once 2/3 of the states pass this resolution saying we would like to hold an Article 5 convention concerning campaign finance reform, then each state will send delegates to the convention, whether they be state representatives or elected citizens, and then they would discuss kind of what would go into the wording of that amendment. And then after the amendment is proposed by that convention, that Article 5 convention, then it would have to be approved by 3/4 of the states before it's added to the Constitution. And then if 3/4 of the states vote in favor of adding this new amendment that's crafted at the convention to the Constitution, then it's added to the Constitution and we have a 20th Amendment.
There you go. I like it. So yeah, it's interesting. I think you touched on a really important point there that this is something, campaign finance is something that the vast majority of the people of the country, of the voters, actually, really wants to do something about this, but Congress hasn't really acted. What I like to use as an example is that because we know that the convention calls have been used to like pressure Congress to propose their own. So what's really interesting is that so we have the Bill of Rights. That's the first 10. That was really already in negotiations, and it was in fact part of ratification for certain states in the original Constitution. So this was like part of this is going to be added on. So that was basically part of the original package. So the 17 after that, 14 of the 17 of those used a convention call to prod Congress to actually do it. But what I think is the best example is the 17th Amendment for the exact same reason, because that's the direct election of senators. So are you expecting the Senate to propose an amendment that goes against their interests? So that's what it did. So people needed to call for the states called for the convention. Once they got really close to that threshold, then they said, okay, I guess we have to do it. Yeah, that's really cool. So specifically about well, actually, what I wanted to ask is, so this is one method, right? And I'm curious, how you feel this method, the Article 5 route, and calling for an Article 5 convention. How does this fit into the broader movement? Because we know there are lots of organizations that are working towards this, but working in different ways. So what are some other organizations that you work with, maybe specifically in Wolf-PAC and Wolf-PAC Minnesota, and then nationally?
Yeah, there's a lot of different organizations we work with. I know we work with Our Revolution and Move to Amend, among several others. Yeah, Wolfpack supports all methods of getting to a new amendment to the Constitution to address these free and fair elections issues we have. And so, yeah, we work with a lot of different groups because we chose the Article 5 route because we think it's obviously sidestepping Congress is the most realistic route. But yeah, really, any way we can get the Article 5 convention, or just any way we can get a constitutional amendment addressing free and fair elections, we're in support of. So yeah, we work with all these different groups that work towards that, whether it's a group who's focusing on actually going through Congress, or whether it's a group that's focusing on getting uh, the Supreme Court to do something about it. We support all different modes of how to resolve this issue. But yeah, two of the ones that come to mind are Our Revolution and Move to Amend. But I know there are several others. I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah, actually, you know what? People who've been watching this, on Real Progressives for a while might actually have seen. We had a big rally. It was the United Against Corruption rally in DC last year. Of course, we wanted to make it annual, but COVID hit, so we obviously couldn't do that every year, or couldn't do that this year. But we live streamed it. You can look back. There was, let me see, Move to Amend, American Promise. Oh man, I wish I could think of more. But yeah, if anyone is interested, you can look back and see that it was really great. It was a freezing cold day, so everybody kind of got through their comments pretty quickly. But it was a really good, it was really good to see all these different organizations unite, because this is, we are working on the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal. Yeah. So specifically about the resolution in Minnesota. Where's that? Where's it at? What's the process that that you guys have needed to take?
Yeah. And this would be good to talk about just generally what states need to do in order to introduce like our resolution or any resolution to their state government. So essentially, what you have to do in order to introduce any resolution to your state government is first you need a legislator to sponsor the bill, either in the House or the Senate. Ideally, you would have two sponsors, one in each chamber, but really you only need one in order to get it in there. And then after it enters into the state Congress, it'll be assigned to a committee in which the committee will review the resolution. They'll discuss the resolution, and then eventually they'll vote on the resolution. And if it passes a committee vote, then it goes to the broader chamber to vote on. And usually it starts in a single chamber. So let's say it started in the House of Representatives. It'll be signed to a committee in the House of Representatives. And then after it passes that committee vote, it'll go to the broader House for another vote. And if it passes the broader vote in the House, then it would go to the Senate. But if it starts in the Senate, then it would start in a committee in the Senate and then go to the broader Senate for a vote, and then it would go to the House for a vote. But specifically for Minnesota, we had our resolution, our free and fair elections resolution. We had it introduced into the Minnesota Senate and House at the same time. I think it's Senator Melissa Franzen of District 49 who introduced it into the Senate, and that's under SF 390. And then it was Representative Dan Walgamot from District 14B that introduced HF 429 into the House. And right now we are focusing on the House of Representatives first, because originally we had been moving it through the Senate, but we encountered some resistance in getting it pushed forward. So we decided to go to the House of Representatives, in which things were it could move a little more freely through there. And so right now our resolution is in the Rules and Legislative Administration Committee in the House of Representatives. And we're just waiting for a committee hearing to be called, and then a vote. And essentially that just means that they'll bring in citizens to say, make a case for the resolution, say why this issue impacts them and all that. And then they'll vote on the resolution. If it passes the Rules and Legislative Administrations Committee, then it'll go to the broader House for a vote, and then the Senate. So that's where we are in Minnesota. Essentially, we're waiting for that committee hearing.
Great. What I'd really like to share with people, because it's a long process, I mean, of course we all want immediate results, but there are things that you need to do to lay the groundwork and get to the point that you're at. I know that, I mean, personally, I've been working with Wolf-PAC Minnesota for, I want to say 3 years. I think it's been 3 sessions. I think this is the 3rd, and it might be the 4th, but little by little, building the team, building support, reaching out to legislators and all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear from you. What does it take? What does it really take? What do the volunteers need to do? What are the essential steps?
Well, as far as contacting your legislator, it is pretty easy. I know when I first, because I'm the one who met with Representative Dan Walgamot to ask him to introduce the legislation to the House. And it was fairly easy. I just emailed my congressperson who agreed to meet with me. That was Zach Stephenson. And then he directed me to Walgamot, and then I met with him, and then he agreed to introduce the resolution. So my process through that was pretty smooth. I know other people's can be a little more bumpy depending on how resistant their legislators are to our resolution, but it can be very easy. Sometimes it just takes the will to reach out to your legislator and talk to them. As far as doing the volunteer work here in Minnesota, if I were to capture kind of where we are right now as far as what volunteers are doing, really we're doing 3 different things. We're emailing legislators, calling legislators, and setting up meetings with legislators. Really passing the resolution. All this work is done just 1 meeting at a time with legislators in one state at a time. And the way in which we're doing these methods of contact is for the email portion. We actually set up an email tool that Wolfpack is using, and those people who are living in Minnesota right now can actually use that. I'll just do a plug for that. It's wolf-pack.com/MN2021. And with that email tool, you're able to just enter your name and address, and it'll auto-generate an email for your legislators showing support for the resolutions in the House and Senate. But also another huge thing is calling your legislator. If you just Google search your address and then figure out what district you're located in, then look up what rep lives in that district, you can get the phone number pretty easily online. And calling the legislator does make a huge impact. I know that studies have shown that it takes about 3 calls to a legislator to really focus their attention on any individual issue. I know that even when we were working in California, after 3 calls to legislators, we received feedback from them that we were making a real difference. And those districts have roughly 1 million people in them versus here in Minnesota where the populations are much less. So really 3 calls really makes a big difference. So calling is another huge way you can help the movement. Just call your legislator and ask them to support our resolution. And the other way is you can help is we're trying to meet and contact and talk with as many legislators as possible, because we found that one-on-one discussions helps us inform them of what the resolution's about, and it can help flip senators who are and representatives who are unsure about the resolution towards supporting it. And volunteers can help us do that by simply agreeing to be on an email chain with us and their senators. I know a lot of the times it's hard for us to get in contact with senators, but if we have constituents living in their district in those conversations with us, the senators are much easier to talk to, or they're much more open, or they're willing to set up meetings, because obviously they want to meet with their constituents, because um, all their power comes from making their constituents happy.
Yep, absolutely. That's awesome. So I'm thinking about even just building up the team. I mean, coming from, I think 3 years ago, when I started working with Wolf-PAC Minnesota, there were 3 people on the team, and they were all pretty new. And so, kind of tell me what is the state of thing? I mean, it is amazing. I always go back to that the Margaret Mead quote. Oh, now I can't think of what it is. Wait, so never doubt that a small group of dedicated people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I might have mixed up a couple of words there, but I think I got it. But here's the key: is that even a small group of people can make a big difference. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about kind of growing the team and things like that, because like where are we at now?
Yeah, so initially the team was pretty small, and I know the team has kind of ebbed and flowed as far as Wolfpack Minnesota goes specifically. Sometimes we have more, sometimes we have less. People come on, people come off, kind of just depending on how busy they are or what things are going on in their lives. But as far as growing the team goes, we have a pretty big contact list of people who signed up for potential volunteers here in Minnesota. And we just kind of run up and down that list, contacting people as needed, and people will chip in what they can, a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. And so essentially we have like a core team member or a core team in Minnesota with like 5 to 7 people who are like there all the time. And then as far as the other volunteers in Minnesota, we'll just contact them as needed, and they'll chip in, they'll call their legislator, they'll use our outreach tool. Um, and as far as growing the team, often we'll do these wolf attack type things where we'll have a bunch of people call our email or our volunteer list in a short session of time, asking them to be activated and help us volunteer. And then once they volunteer, we're able to get them kind of in our meetings and just catch them up on where we are. And then they help us do calls too, and they'll help us do several other tasks that are needed. So yeah, and it's really just a constant contacting of people who've signed up to our volunteer list, getting them kind of up to speed and getting them to do certain activities. And then a lot of them will kind of drop off, and in between sessions when we're not actually doing very much, they'll rest and live their lives, and then they'll come back to volunteering later. Mm-hmm. And all the meanwhile, the core team is here, and we're working every week.
I love that too. Like, I just really like to stress that, because I think sometimes people, it seems like a lot, and so people get intimidated. But the thing is, no matter how much time you have to put in, no matter how much you can put in. Listen, I'm a single mom with a full-time job and like all of that stuff, and it's like, okay, sometimes I can really only put in a few minutes. I got a lot going on, but even if it's a time when you can really only put in 5 minutes to make a phone call or send an email or something like that, it is a huge help. So even those people who are not part of the core team but step up to help when it's needed, it all matters, and it all helps to kind of get to this point. I have to say, I'm just really excited about where you guys are at. So do you know, I know that Minnesota right now has a live resolution. Right now we're waiting to see if when it's called for a committee hearing, trying to prepare our testimonies so that we're ready. I see, this is the thing. I talk like I'm in Minnesota. I'm not there. I'm not testifying in Minnesota, but I feel like I'm an honorary Minnesotan Wolf-PAC member. So we'll just go with that. So that's where Minnesota is at. And I think that there are some other ones right now. Do you know of what other states there are? I mean, Washington, I know that one because that's big. They almost passed last session. They're alive. I think Kansas. Oh, I'm bad at this. I should have looked it up and figured out who was actually. Suffice to say, there are a lot of live resolutions right now. This is happening in a lot of different states. So, so what is your message to people? I always like to call for, end it with a call to action, right? That's what this is all about. My show is about activists and how you can get involved and things like that. So give us a little, closing out with, what people can do and how they can get involved, where they can find information about it.
Yeah, sure. If you're interested in getting involved, you can sign up to be a volunteer at www.wolfpack.com, wolf-pack.com, sorry. And yeah, there are teams in every single state. How developed those teams are, how many people, how many core members there are, kind of varies. But yeah, sign up to be a volunteer online and just start joining the weekly meetings, starting catching up on where your state's team is, and then you can slowly start getting involved, and eventually doing more and more, you can make a big difference. And if your state doesn't have anything that's near as well established as you would have hoped as far as volunteering goes, our organization really is very flat in terms of like a hierarchy goes. So you can, as a new volunteer, join your state team and take lead very easily and very quickly. So if you're really motivated and you get to your state meetings and get to your state team, you don't see that there's a ton of stuff going on. Just take charge yourself. There's no need to wait for other people to address this issue. It is very easy to get meetings with legislators. It is very easy to talk to the politicians on the state level. So you really can just dive in and just make a difference yourself. If you don't see people around you making a difference, well, just, get in there and get your hands dirty and make that difference yourself and lead your state team towards where it needs to be. And once we get all 34 states needed, the 2/3 threshold for an Article 5 convention, and we can pass the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, getting special interest and corruption out of our government. The Congress will be a place where good ideas don't go to die anymore. It'll actually be a place where we can work to get things done and to address all of the real issues we have in our country. So yeah, just get involved and do everything you can.
Absolutely. I love it. And just to bolster what you're saying, I mean, I have seen teams with just one person in that state build it up to a really strong team. So yeah, absolutely, just backing you up. And thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited. Hopefully we can have you back on and we can talk about how we pass the resolution. And you're doing it. I told you, I feel like I have bragging rights, but no, y'all. So thank you everyone for watching. Really excited about this. And yeah, if you can get involved in your state, check it out. www.wolf-pack.com, like Gabe said. And so thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have the means, please support us on Patreon / Real Progressives. Thank you very much. Signing off.